Meet me. Time for you to close your eyes.
No.
Welcome back, boys, to another squirrely review. Now, of course, Holiday Yufine is currently on the banner as of this video, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious about her. So today we're going to talk about her skills, her builds, a quick little PvP showcase, and of course we'll summarize, and you guys will figure out what she's all about. Let's get started. Alright, so let's discuss Holiday Yufine's skills. Her kit is quite unique. So her S1 is interesting because it's a warrior AoE attack, and at max mola it has a 75% chance to burn for one turn. But that AoE attack is only on her turn, so if she dual attacks, she will only hit a single target and have the same animation as Green Yufine. But with the AoE one, it hits the whole enemy team, does decent damage, applies burns, and with her artifact, she can actually stun people as well. Another thing to note is that her AoE attack is not affected by elemental disadvantage, but it will also never trigger a dual attack. And that's about it for her S1. Her S2, this got buffed recently, so at max mola it reduces the effect of decreased combat readiness debuffs on all allies by 30%, so it's 50% with molas. What does that mean? So if Basar is going to push you back 30%, it reduces that by 50%, so it only pushes you back by 15%. And it also increases her evasion by 20% all the time, so permanently. And if she's at max health, by an additional 50%. So effectively, what does that mean? How do we know what this hero does? Clearly, this was meant to counter Basar. This hero first came out when Basar was incredibly... I mean, he's still kind of toxic, but he was even more toxic back then. And basically, it meant that Yufine had a 100% chance to resist or dodge Basar's S3 opener. And why was that important? Well, let's talk about the S3. S3 dispels 2 debuffs from all allies and attacks all enemies before granting Yufine increased attack greater, which is great for her burns, and pushing the combat readiness of all allies by 20%. So now her role becomes clear, right? Basar can only push her back by 15%, but she pushes her own team by 20% and also dispels 2 debuffs. So back then the classic, I mean, you could still do it now, but Basar was very like rampant back then. Now there's other options like F10A and stuff, but back then everyone used Basar to open her, right? And she was basically able to counter initiate. You open with Basar if your Yufine's fast enough. Number one, she reduces the pushback, but then she pushes up your own team again, cleanses all those unbuffables, and basically you get a full reset from Basar's opener. Now obviously Basar's not the only hero this works against. You can also use this against things like Cerise and stuff, but clearly it was designed specifically for Basar because of the way her kit works, right? Because she has a 100% chance to dodge Basar. You can also use her to cleanse stuff like Cerise S3s, but she does have a chance to get hit by those on the opener. Another thing to note is because this evasion is impacted by her or contingent on her being at max health, it actually stacks very well with barrier heroes like FCC because if she's at max health, she has this huge amount of evasion all the time, right? So with the buffs, it's at 70%. If she's at max HP against grass, it's 100%. That's a pretty big amount of dodge. So if you pair with a barrier hero, it does help her a lot. Let's move on to the builds. Alright, so how do you build Yufine? I mean, a lot of people build her quite differently, to be honest. Some like her on very high damage builds, like I've seen like 4k attack 300 crit damage builds. Some like her tankier. Some like her with no crit chance or crit damage, and they'll build pure attack and use her as kind of a burn stacker. I kind of picked a middle of the road approach, but your mileage may vary. My recommended build is around 3k attack, crit chance, crit damage, it's kind of in the middle. If you really want to go that burn build, just ditch these stats, stack them into attack kind of builder like Carrot, but then you're going to need to use Junkyard Dog. Defensively, I recommend at least 1200 defense and at least 14k HP so she doesn't just get blown up right away. And speed, essentially you want her to be tuned to go before your DPSs so that she cleanses them before they get their turn, right? So you can put up attack buffs and stuff. Now, if you're using her only against Basar, this is quite easy because realistically, what happens? Basar pushes your entire team back except the Yufine because he can't hit her, so she doesn't actually need to be that much faster than your DPSs or even faster at all because she won't get pushed back, but the rest of your team will. However, if you want to use her against things like Cerise or, as a RNG F10A dodge thing, then you're going to want her to be faster than your DPSs because what's the point if all your DPSs take their turn and then Yufine cleanses afterwards, right? So your speed tuning will have to depend on how you intend to use her. But this is how I built my Yufine. It's up to you. You can build her with more damage, you can build her with more speed, you can build her with more tank. It'll all depend on who you intend to run her with and who you intend to use her to counter. She's a very good counter to Basar against a lot of other heroes. Not always the most reliable because, her dodge is not going to be 100% against something like an F10A, so she might be a liability and there's probably safer counters. Recommended artifacts. I'm running her artifact because I find it hilarious. It's basically a warrior abyssal crown, but it only procs on her S1. I think it's funny. Another option is Junkyard Dog for people who are really interested in stacking her attack and doing heavy damage with burns. I've even seen some people run her on Sigurd Scythe. I honestly don't really recommend it, but it does give her a lot of attack, and she does have an AoE S1, so she does heal for a lot if you put her on Sigurd Scythe, but honestly it's just a wonky build. But if you want to meme people, that's also an option. So I think that's pretty much it for builds. Again, there's a lot of variability here because it just depends on who you run her with and the speed tuning of your favorite DPS characters. Adjust accordingly, but against Basar's, it kind of doesn't matter that much. She's going to do her job. And let's move on to the PvP showcase so we can show you exactly why she neuters Basar. Alright, so let's use Yufine in Arena. Now, I'm going to bring her against Basar teams because that's really what Yufine was designed to counter, right? So let's try it. And they even have a Politis to kind of reduce my CR push-ups, but that's fine. We're going to bring G-Purge to mitigate some of that as well. So watch this. Basar's going to push us back, but because of Yufine's passive, it's actually not going to push us back anywhere near as far as it normally would. Now the Zealot Crow is actually quite fast, so it still goes before me, but no big deal. So my whole team is unbuffable now, but we can just go ahead and cleanse all that up. So, boop. Fortunately, my strays cut my G-Purge. I guess he didn't get pushed back, but that's fine. We'll just rip the S3 here, whip out and kill that LR Crow, and my whole team is nice and cleansed of debuffs. Someone's gonna die to this RB, but it's no problem. The whole point of this was that we were able to successfully counter-initiate on them, and now it's game over and we win. Let's try to hunt down another Basar team. Basar has terrorized people for so long. I mean, not so much anymore, but I still have, flashbacks of the past, and this is perfect. Finally, the Basar is fast and goes first. Hopefully pushes my entire team back except the Yufine. No, it still didn't work out, but that's fine. We're still going to rip this Straze S3. And didn't actually do that much because they all have high attack, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and cleanse ourselves up and give ourselves a nice little push. Green Violet's getting dumpstered though, so we're enjoying that. S3 here. And there we go, counter initiation complete. So they opened with Basar, but my entire team took their turns before they did. And that's the point, right? And granted G-Purge is there as well, but the whole point of opening a team with Basar is so that you go first and you get all your turns before the enemy team. Yufine, clearly she's very effective at stopping that, so I think that's about all we need to see here. Yufine is definitely a very strong, viable counter to Basar, so let's move on to the summary. Alright, last one, but this is too much fun just beating up on Basar teams, so we'll do one more and then we'll move on to the summary. Move on. So there we go, here we go, this is speed tuned right. The Basar is actually going before the Elfelt. Fighter Maya doesn't like that. We actually resisted this thing from Elfelt. Alright, she gets Death Broken. Alright, so only one of us is actually unbuffable. So let's do this. We don't even really have anything to cleanse, so we'll just go ahead and go up, and look at that Yufine damage. It's actually not terrible, right? Like, granted, they have no damage mitigation on this team. So, if they have no damage mitigation, her damage is actually decent. But the moment you start putting knights on the team, she kind of hits like a wet noodle. So we'll kill this Arby. Then we'll whack this. Poke this. And it's a wrap. Let's move on to the summary. Alright, so now that we've gone through all that, as always, Holiday Yufine, is she good? She's alright. So in her intended role, like her entire kit is designed to counter Basar, right? So she does great at countering Basar. The thing is, there's a lot of other initiating control heroes now, like F10A and stuff, and she's not all that great against those. Now, with the recent buffs, it's a pretty decent coin flip, right? Because on the first turn, she has a 70% chance to dodge. So if you're really willing to flip the dice, or flip the dice, roll the dice, then, you know, she's not a bad option. But realistically, there's safer things out there, like, you know, DJ Basar, Ray, Mediator Cowrick. There's a lot safer ways to deal with heroes like that. She really only excels against Basar, and, you know, he's still used at the Legend tier, but not, like, spammed as much as he used to be in previous seasons. There's a lot more options now. So let's go right into the ratings. Arena offense, I'm going to give her a C-. I mean, there's not that many Basars on arena defenses anymore, and I don't think people struggle with that anyway. There's plenty of ways to deal with it. And also, her total damage output is not particularly great. Again, I'm a big advocate of either cleaving or autoing in arena offense. She's not really good in either of those roles, so not too great. Arena defense, it's just an F. Makes no sense to bring her. I mean, all they have to do is not bring Basar, and she doesn't hit that hard. If you bring something like LR Crow, she's just going to feed your team, so doesn't make any sense. Guild Wars offense, I'm going to give her a solid C there. I mean, again, if they have Basar on defense, she'll be great, but not many people run Basar on their Guild War defense anymore. You know, it used to be very, like, in every single Guild Wars defense back then. She just hasn't aged well, because these kind of heroes, whether they're meta or not, depends on whether the hero they counter is meta or not, right? Not that Basar isn't meta, but it's just not spammed in every team like it used to be. So not that important in Guild Wars offense. Guild Wars defense, F. Doesn't make sense. Don't use her. Now, RTA, the most important category, honestly, a C+. Again, she does okay against Basar teams, but the thing is, her damage is kind of a liability. And the fact that things like LR Crow and SSB exist, like the AoE attack, if they're smart, they could abuse it. Like, basically, if they have an SSB, every time she uses this, they're going to counter. If they have an LR Crow, you're going to be feeding his S3 constantly. So it's not safe to pick her early, right? If you're going to pick her in a draft, it has to be kind of late. And if they have a knight on the team, usually the damage mitigation is too much because she doesn't hit very hard. And if they have even like a single Soul Weaver on the team, you just won't ever be able to kill anything with Holiday Yufine. Now, if they have a very squishy draft with no knights, like let's say they pick something like Basar, S10A, and some more DPSs and a weak utility pick, then she's a very solid pick into those teams. So there are cases, even in high-end Legend RTA, where Yufine is a sensible pick, but those situations are very, very rare. So for the most part, it just does not make sense to take her into very many drafts. So that's my summary on Yufine. Like, the quick summary would be great against Basar, meh against everything else. So I would say, if you struggle with Basar, go ahead, get her, build her. But, in most cases, there are plenty of other options that have more powerful general purpose utility. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you want to pull for her, I mean, like right now she's on the banner. Go for it. She's a fun hero, but just don't expect her to elevate your play to the next level or anything. In many situations, she's just not viable. So anyways, thanks for watching. Till next time, boys, and peace out.